Today, I am so excited to welcome Nicole Begley to the podcast. For those of you that do not know who she is, the fabulous face behind Hair of the Dog. She has tons of great resources for pet photographers and a huge, amazing community of talented photographers. And I am so excited to have her here today. Nicole, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Sure. Hey, Karinda, thanks so much for having me. I am a zoological animal trainer turned pet photographer. Guess I've been doing this now since 2010, which, if I look at the calendar, has been 13 years, which is insane. Yeah, so I actually started my business in 2010 photographing families with some pets on the side because way back then, who knew you could just be a pet photographer? And as I started to photograph more dogs, and I've photographed horses throughout the years too, they've always been like maybe 10% of my business, 15%. Most of it's been pet photography. In 2015, I made the very hard decision to kind of like completely rebrand pet only and shut down the family side of my business, which was terrifying because I did absolutely nothing to market that and I still liked it. I didn't dislike it, but it got to the point of there's only so many hours in the day. I want to grow the pet side. Something has to give. So that was it. And yeah, haven't looked back. It's been fantastic.
Yes, I love that. It's crazy. We made our transitions about that halfway point in our businesses from where we are now. Both of us did. So today we're going to talk about creating emotional connection with your clients. And I do truly feel like this is the basis of everything in our business is creating real, genuine connections with people, getting to know them, know their wants, their needs, their desires, their values, and then transitioning that into an experience that fits their needs, feeds their soul, feeds your own soul too, and helps you connect with your clients on a deeper level so that you fall madly in love with them. And this is, I think, the difference in just like being a photographer, taking somebody's money, showing up to take their photos, going home at the end of the day versus building true, genuine relationships. So let's talk about where the emotional connection starts. For me in my business, the emotional connection starts with my marketing. It starts my marketing, my messaging, my website. Oh, if I hit your website and I don't feel some sort of like emotionalness, like that gets me to the point of your why, it boils down to your why as well. And if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me talk about your why a lot. I think in 1 month I did 2 episodes on your why, and I didn't even realize it until my podcast editor was like, "Did you know that you did 2 episodes on this?" And I was like, "I love it so much. We have to keep
It's really important. It needs to go.
Clearly.
We're going to do 3.
So I really think it's rooted in your why. And I think it starts in your marketing, your messaging, and your website, meaning we can't just put our photos out there and expect that our photos are going to make us stand out and get people to be willing to invest and spend a ton of money with us. We have to take that a level deeper and use our words, which is very word to use words. I know we just want to take pictures and hide behind the camera. We can't do that. So Nicole, where does the first line of that emotional connection begin for you in your business?
Oh, preach it. I was just going to say, we're here to talk about the inquiry process, but it begins so much earlier. It begins at that first point of contact. I would go even further back before the website and marketing, and it goes to what your previous clients or anyone that's interacted with your brand is saying about you to whoever they're referring to your business. So before anyone even hits your website or hits that marketing piece or gets that first point of contact, like there's already possibly an expectation of what they might experience from your brand based on what other people have already experienced. So yeah, I think it starts there and then it rolls into that website. Karinda, I can't tell you how many photographer websites I go to that are just really, it could be exactly the same. That we could take that website and switch out the photos for that person's website and you would have no idea that it's a different photographer. And especially in the pet photography space, so many people photograph dogs because maybe they're a little bit more introverted, or they just don't want to put themselves out there, or they find so much solace in their relationship with their dog, which our clients also find solace in their relationship with the dog. But so many people don't put themselves in their story of their website and their marketing and put themselves on their website, which, don't mishear me, the stories that we're telling on our website need to be about our clients and how we can help them. But we need to do those stories from sharing ourselves too, so that we're relatable to those clients, that they can actually connect with us, know who we are, what we stand for, how we're going to help them, what transformation that we can help them achieve by getting pictures done. Because it's not just about the photos, right? It's about capturing this relationship that they have with this animal that's only on this earth for a short period of time. And how are we talking about that? How are we showing that? What are we showing on the website? Are we showing just photos, or are we showing what these photos would look like as a finished piece on the wall? Are we showing albums? Oh my gosh, I could talk just about this for 30 hours because it's so important to have that emotional connection on a website that gets people to keep reading and then picture what's possible for them, come over the objections that they're inevitably going to have. So here's the process. And then we can start to unpack this because I just said a lot of things. So the process is someone might hear about you, or they see something about your business and they end up on your website. And then they get there and they start to see, hopefully they, on the top of the fold, like that first page, they know who you're serving, how you're helping, where you are. And maybe there's some sort of hook, like emotional connection there, that they want to keep scrolling. They want to keep reading. And as they do, they're reading about themselves. They're like, oh my God, this is how I feel about my dog. Oh, wow, this is a thing. Oh, I'm not weird for wanting photos of my dog on the wall. And then we need to hit the objections that they might have. So in pet photography, the first one is always, this photographer is amazing. These images are beautiful, but my dog would never do this. All right, we got to talk about that everywhere. And then also, God, these are amazing. If they think their dog might do it, it'll be, oh, but my dog has to stay on leash. So I can never have these beautiful, epic, like backgrounds outdoors that these other dogs have. So you need to look at your business and your genre and what are the objections that people have before they book you. And we need to make sure we're talking about that on our website, on social media, really anywhere that we can. And I know for equines, one that I know of often is, my barn isn't pretty. It's just a normal looking barn, because they see these gorgeous, amazing images that we're creating. And they're like, that's great when you have this barn with chandeliers. And then I think the other one that goes for dogs or horses, especially if you want to encourage the owner to be with them, is that I don't know how to pose, or I don't really like how I look in pictures. So those are my two. Are there any other objections for horses? Excuse me, for equine photography?
I think that people are always just, my horse is never going to do this. My horse is crazy. There's no way this is going to happen. And I think the cool part about this whole objection thing is like, it goes back to like, we are like more, I almost think we're more like therapists than we are really photographers. Like, we have to be so good at predicting where people are going to feel worried or scared, or they're going to be like, man, I don't think this is going to work for me. And we have to identify, what I like to say is we have to identify our clients' worries and fears before they have a chance to think about them. I'm really good at that because I worry a lot in my personal life. So I'm great at figuring out what people are going to worry about and taking care of it. But like, when you take care of people's worries and frustrations and fears, they feel like you get them. They're like, oh, she gets me. She sees me. And like, just being taken care of and like doing that before you even talk to somebody, it helps take away their worries. And they're like, I don't know if this is for me. Karinda's telling me that it could be for me. So maybe I need to talk about that. And I think that this is when you transition from like your website and all of your marketing that tells them like, hey, I'm going to take care of you. Pam got you. Hey, it's no big deal. Hey, everything's going to be fine. By the way, I get you. You're a crazy dog person. You're a crazy horse girl. Nobody gets it, but I get you. Then you transition to your info call, which is really, truly where it becomes from, hey, I've got you. I'm going to take care of you. We do all these amazing things for you too. Let me get to know you as a person and
Mhm.
not just as a looker on the internet. I would say our info call is our first real personal touch, whereas our marketing and our website is our touch point to that emotional connection.
Mhm.
But it's not you as a person caring about them quite yet. It's still you as a business.
Yep.
And I think this is a good point to point out. People don't buy what we do, they buy why we
Mhm.
do it.
Mhm.
There's a million other photographers out there that they could hire, but there's not a million other photographers that truly care about their client.
Mhm.
And when people see that they've sent emails to 5 or 10 other photographers or whatever it may be, especially like when I was doing weddings and people were emailing tons of photographers. And then I would pick up the phone and call them and talk to them and get to know them and take them out to coffee and to like just sit there and hear their life story. The other photographers just sent their pricing back. So I
Mhm.
automatically stood out. I didn't want to talk about pricing. I didn't want to talk about their wedding. I wanted to talk about them first. And I think that's
Mhm.
when I really truly realized how important it was to talk about them and get to know them as a person before we really dove into everything else. What was your experience with that? Was there a time in your business where you like learned that you had to actually get to know the people, or was it always something that you did?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think that really happened on the family side of things because when you were a family photographer, like the mom is just hands off to all the moms out there because we all know that we carry the mental load of organizing all the things. Like,
Mhm.
hey, when is this permission slip done? Oh, when do the kids need their new dentist appointment? Oh, who's going to switch out the summer to the winter clothes? Like, all of these things are going on in mom's brains. So the first time that I realized that was like, oh, I need to make sure that I am connecting with this mom and just letting them know, hey, we've got this. Tell me about your family. What is it about your family that like you absolutely love? Tell me about Johnny. Tell me about Sarah. What really like lights up their eyes? What makes you when you see them doing this that you just wish you could capture that moment forever? So it would take them from that place of, oh my gosh, I have all these things to do. And family photography was a little bit more on a timeline because it was like, "Oh, I should get some pictures before my kids lose their front teeth." Like, there still was, like, a little bit more urgency there to get photos done versus, like, pet photography, which we'll talk about. And so, like, they might be reaching out to us and same kind of thing, reaching out to a couple different family photographers and the people that could then talk to them and get them to reflect for a moment why this is a special thing to move forward for and what it is specifically about their family that they want to capture and remember. Done. Booked every single time
Mm.
because because we were going out of that due to just oh the emotional connection of what we can create together and then there weren't any other photographers in the running and then the experience was great and then they told other people and then my business was literally just referrals which made it really hard to shut it down in 2015 so yeah absolutely.
I love that. I think that we have to remember, and something that I don't remember where I heard this. I think it was at
Hmm.
imaging years ago. I remember sitting in somebody's class and he said, if you can make a person cry on your info call, they will book with you. And I was like, oh, that's a really smart idea. So I always use this like challenge. When you get someone on your info call, if you can make them cry, you've won them over. And it's not about making them cry in a bad way. It's about making them like see the value and why this is important. I like to say If I said to you and Nicole, if your daughter is graduating and she's about to go off to college, and you and her go to the barn together every single day, you've taken her to the barn to ride when she was a little girl. Tell me, when she goes to college, what is it that you're going to miss the most about taking her to the barn and seeing her play with her pony? What are those things that you just want to remember forever? As a mom, you're going to be like,
I know already. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to college in 3.5 years.
yeah. As a mom, like, I think it's really easy to do this with moms about their kids.
Yeah.
I think it can be a little bit
But
harder with animals.
I would say it works really well for our target pet client because we all know, excuse me, as pet photographers or as pet owners, there's a wide gamut from like the person that has the dog chained up in the backyard that sees it as just this animal that lives outside they might throw food to every now and again, to the person that sees their pet as like their little fur child. Like the dog goes everywhere with them. That relationship is one of their most important relationships in their life and everything in between. So our general pet portrait clients tend to be the ones that are more on that upper end of the spectrum. Same thing with the equine clients, right? So they might be like show horses, but you still have that relationship with those horses that like that relationship is really special and important versus somebody that maybe has a pony in the backyard that they like go out and groom it once a month. So yeah, so I think you can still elicit those feelings by asking them what's the favorite thing that you do with your dog. Like when you look back at these images we're going to create together in 20 years, what is it that you want to remember about this your relationship with this dog? And that'll get to the heart of anyone that loves their dog that's contacting us about doing pet photography.
Just don't say when your horse dies or your dog dies.
Oh no.
You're gonna miss.
No.
You have to say it in a way that's, I like the way you said that. 10 years, 20 years from now, what is it that you're gonna miss?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
nice way to say it. You have to be like delicate.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I like to say finding your why, going back to your why, finding your why and understanding like what is important to you as a person. And then being able to ask questions that can pull that out of your clients can be so valuable. Because if I just say to somebody, for me, my why is based on the fact that as a horse person, I think that most horse people, not everybody, this is not a generalized statement, but this is some portion of the horse people, which happen to be my clients. They feel like that relationship with their horse is a little bit magical. And they feel that magic inside when they're around their horse, when they're out there at the barn, but they can't quite explain it to anybody. You can't tell your non-horse friends like what that's like. But for me, I can create a image that shows that magic that is a physical representation of that feeling that we have deep down inside. And for me, if I can ask my client or find a way to ask my client something that brings out that feeling inside of them of that little sparkle of magic that they feel when they're just in the barn cuddling with their pony, they get it. And the fact that I can get them to feel that feeling and that little flutter inside of them and that excitement inside of them, that right there is what breaks down all the barriers on that phone call for me. Is like, it just melts. Like they just melt and their hearts just are like, oh yeah, my pony when he cuddles with me. It's just that feeling that he gives me. Then all of a sudden you could say it's going to cost $100,000 to work with me. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, for 100,000. Of course I would have that.
I'll find it. I'll figure it out.
Maybe not 100,000. That's where it takes it from like, I'm just getting on this phone call here about pricing to this person gets me. She sees me. She understands my heart. Oh, my heart's melting. I'll pay anything. Take all my money.
Yeah, it takes it out of the comparison logical shopping brain where it's, okay, I'd like to get photos done. Okay, and we've all seen those, like maybe on software when you're like, oh, I need to buy this software. And you go to like the big board and it's, here's the checklist of this software and its 5 competitors and all the things that each one has. So when you start to hit on these emotional levels, you're taking your client away from like this giant checklist of like, all right, there's 5 dog photographers in my market that I like, and then this one's going to give me this, and this is going to be that one's going to be that price, and this is going to be that price. But when you make those emotional connections, the price doesn't matter,
Yeah.
and they're sold, they're in. And I did want to talk about this, how you were just explaining that, like your why. I think one thing that's important to have on our website, and another way that we can start to get them to think about, hey, what's really important about this relationship you have right now that isn't going to last with forever, without saying, hey, once your dog's no longer with you, what are you going to think about? But is you can think about your why, but also if you look at it as, okay, what's your origin story? Like, why are you doing this? What's happened in your life you can share as a story on your website, on your About Me page, that is a story about you, but it's in disguise calling out to your target client and like telling them, hey, don't miss out on this opportunity. This is why this is important for you. So, for instance, back I had a horse for a couple years in high school or in college. I had him in college. He was an off the track thoroughbred. But I had a couple, like, show photos of him jumping in the jump, but there were no photos of me and him, except when I was cleaning out stuff out of my mom's house, I found this old it was a presentation. A friend of mine was in a photography class at WVU, and so one of her projects was to come out and take some photos of me and my horse. And I found this, and I was like, "Oh my god, these photos" I'm gonna cry. "Those photos mean more to me than any show photo." Am I glad I still have a photo of him jumping like a 3-6 oxer in the amateur owners because I was crazy and jumped that big that day, or that time in my life because I was 22? Yes, but these photos of just me and him at the barn mean more to me than that ever would.
Yeah.
Um, and the same thing with, like, with my dog. I had a dog growing up, okay, guys, probably so did everybody, but, like, the dog that we just had, our first family dog, Zoe, that passed away when she was 6 after being totally healthy, and then a week later, she was gone. It's I can talk about that story and why it's important that you get photos now and you don't wait, and it's true to me, and it's anyone reading that has that same relationship with their dog is gonna be like, "Shit, pick up the phone right now." Like, I am in.
Well,
So,
yeah.
think about those stories and why this matters so that you can again, it's sharing you, so they're making a connection with you, but it's really questioning in their mind, it becomes, "Oh, this could happen to me." I don't wanna say regret, like, regret's a strong word, but, like, you're showing up then as the guide to be like, "Hey, I wanna save you from this. Let's work together so that you have these beautiful images to love for the rest of your life."
Yeah. I my
Yeah.
website actually says that. It's like, you have pictures of yourself in the ring, but you don't have this.
Yeah, yeah,
So when you said that, I was
yep.
like, "Heck yeah." My message is
Yeah, nailed
excellent.
it.
Nicole would be sold.
I would.
And I think something to point out, if you're listening to this in the podcast, you can't see this, but Nicole teared up when she talked about her.
I did.
And if you talking about your story and your why does not make you tear up, it's not good enough. And as a person that I am largely not a very emotional person, I'm a bit cynical
Same.
about life. But like, I could sit here and tell you the story about the picture of our boxer that's in our living room of me, my husband, our boxer, and our Aussie, and our boxer that passed away. Suddenly, she was our baby.
Yeah.
I look at that picture every day and I know that I want each and every freaking person that I cross paths with to have the same thing, whether it's their dog or their horse or whatever it may be
Mm.
on their wall. Because that picture means more to me than anything in the world. To see her goofy little face, like a boxer face,
Right.
with our Australian Shepherd biting her leg during the picture, and then Austin and I dying of laughter because that was our life. That means so freaking much to me. And the value of that and the power it has, the impact it has. And we have a 2-year-old human child. I always have to specify human child around horse and dog people. Our 2-year-old human child, he looks at the wall and he goes, "That's Paisley." And I'm like, "Yes, that is Paisley." I miss Paisley.
Aw.
And like,
Yeah.
we should have we should have that reaction and we should talk about it and we should feel it so deep down inside that it
Mhm.
oozes from us when we talk to our clients. And we can sit there on that phone call and not say, I have a picture of my dead dog on the wall and it makes me cry when I look at it, but in a good way.
Right.
We don't need to say that, but like we can ask the right questions
Mhm.
and we can connect with them on that level so they know that we get it.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. There's a story that I feel like is really important to share here because I don't know about you, but everywhere I go in life, I'm always looking for a business lesson to learn.
Yeah.
If I go to restaurants, I love car salesmen because I think there's so much great and terrible things to learn from car salesmen. But I've experienced this twice, and I feel like it's really important to point out. And it's one of the things that has really made me realize the importance of getting to know people. I bought a camper 3 years ago for my business so I could travel in my camper, do portrait sessions.
Mhm.
And do you know how annoying it was to go into a car dealership, an RV dealership, and to have the salesman never ask you what you needed and to be showing you all of
Oh.
these things that they thought you needed when you're like,
Mhm.
no, I need storage. I need a bunk because I have a ton of equipment to store. If they would have just asked me those questions about what I needed and what I valued,
Yeah.
but instead they wanted to show me what they thought I should have. They
Uh-huh.
wanted to show me what they thought I
You would
could
want.
afford
Oh. Uh-huh.
or what I said I could afford, which I was willing to spend more money than I was telling them that I was going to
Mhm.
spend. If they would have said, what is it that you need? And instead showed me what I needed instead of saying, what can you afford? And showing me what they thought I could afford,
Mm.
I would have spent 10 grand more on something if they would have just shown me exactly what I was telling them that I needed. But they never
Yep.
asked me what I needed. They never asked
No,
me what
this
I
is yeah.
valued in that camper. And so therefore, they were just showing me things that mentally in my head, I thought, oh, I could probably get this for this price. When what I thought I could get in my head for that price was not really what I wanted or needed.
Yeah. No, this is huge. There's quite a few things to unpack here. Number 1 is the what they thought you could afford. How many of us have made snap judgments about potential clients before we actually have any conversations with
Oh,
them? Like, I know for me, I've had some of my best clients that were grad students and they did a payment plan, but they really valued what I offered. And same thing when you start to look at your pricing. This isn't about pricing psychology, but it is a little bit about mindset here because if you don't believe that you can actually attract these clients, you're never going to. So you need to connect with that. But when you start to question, this is too expensive. I I hate when people say it's too expensive. I don't know. No one's going to pay that because who are you to judge what's expensive for somebody else? Somebody might think a $10 sandwich is expensive, where somebody else might have just ordered the, like, $15,000, like, gold leaf taco at some place in Vegas. There's we all have a different level of what's expensive, and you should never judge anyone based on what they're going to spend, based on what you think their financial picture in their life is. For instance, I have had some of my most frugal clients living in the largest houses and some
mhm.
of my best clients as grad students and everything else in between. And I would say the bulk of my clients are your average professional in a normal sized house doing normal things
Yeah.
that just really love their freaking dog.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
I
yeah.
think
Yep.
that's
Go ahead.
so important. My husband and I actually, we, I have purple hair. My husband has a big beard. We don't
Yep.
dress super nicely, especially when we're making
Same.
purchases. Like when we're vehicle shopping, we do not. We purposely dress. And
Yeah.
I'll wear yoga pants and a t-shirt, and he wears like crappy shorts and a
Yeah.
t-shirt. Like we purposely don't present ourselves as somebody that can afford to buy nice things, even though we can. And Part of the reason is because you really see someone's true colors when you go in to buy something and spend a lot of money, and they judge you based on how you look. And having purple hair has shown me so much that people will judge me based on my hair more than anything else, which is absolutely crazy. But I see it so much now, and it has allowed me to be so much less judgmental in my life when I see the way someone looks. When we were in our early 20s, we were first married. I don't even know if we were married yet. Yeah, I think we were married, and we were shopping for a car. I remember going into a car dealership, and literally the salesman said to us, "I don't think you should be shopping for a new car. You should probably go over to the used car lot." Talk about like absolutely one of those moments that completely changed my perspective and the way I run my business. That moment
Uh-huh.
right there showed me that even if I couldn't have bought the new car, I wanted them to treat me like I could have bought the new car. We did go buy the new
Yeah.
car from another dealership down the road.
Right.
Guess what we bought the new car from the car salesman who said to me, not my husband, he looked at me, "What do you do?" "Oh, you're a photographer? Wow, that's cool. I've always wanted to be a photographer. That is so amazing. What's your favorite part about being a photographer?" That's how he introduced himself to us. And
Uh,
going from that really terrible experience of being told you should shop on the used car lot to
uh-huh.
walking into this other dealer. It was actually on my birthday. I was sick. It was late at night. We were like, Whatever, they have this truck we want. Let's just go buy it and see if we can get it." Went in there, and the guy actually took time to care about me and what I did, not just my
Mhm.
husband, assuming that my husband was
Yep.
paying the bills. And not only when I said what I did, but actually genuinely acted like he cared. He could have not given two craps about photography, but he sure as heck acted like he loved what I did and was interested in it and wanted to know more. That's why he bought that car that night. I would have done anything to buy that vehicle from that salesman just because he cared about us. He was the first car salesman in our line of 6 or 7 dealerships we'd gone to that actually
Yeah.
cared about us or appeared to care about us. And
Made
that
you feel a
was
certain way.
yeah, it was a huge aha moment. Wow, he actually cares. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you, like, if you've never gone and bought a car, even if you're not really interested in buying a car, go to some car dealerships and shop for cars because you will learn a lot of good and bad. And it really will tell you a lot. So I think start to pay attention to just everyday interactions and you can learn so much for your business.
Yeah.
I just felt like this
Yeah.
was a fitting story for this conversation.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And I do wanna talk more about that, eliciting that value, because we've all heard, okay, you get your client on the call and you ask them about them, you ask them about the dog, and then it's like usually, okay, and then you just explain how the process works and what the value is and this and that. But I think when we do that, we're missing a huge piece, and that is to elicit the value. So it's for you when you walked into the RV store, like, what do you need? What how can this be valuable to you? What's your most important feature really you're looking for? So when I talk to my clients on the inquiry call, we start off with, okay, tell me about your dog, tell me about this, and lots of pleasantries so I get to know them a little bit. And then I usually ask them, what caused you to call me today? What happened? What has caused this to be like to do something that you wanted to do now? Because I know how easy it is to put this off. And so that's a huge question because that will tell me, okay, did the dog have a diagnosis? Did they finally get around to something? Did they finally see somebody's artwork and they're like, oh my God, I just need to do it? Did they read something on my website that said, oh yeah, okay, no, I get that. I just need to do this. What is the impetus for them to be calling me now? So that's super helpful. Also let you know the timing that you're looking at and how to speak to how you're offering and when you can slide them in and that kind of stuff. And the other thing is we talk about that for a little bit and then I ask them, okay, awesome. I'm going to tell you all about this and tell you all about the process. But I want to ask you first, what's most important to you in this process? What's most important to you at the end of the day after we're done with this photo session, we create beautiful artwork. What's most important to you? And that is the most important question. I used to say the most important question to ask is, what do you want to do with your images after the session? Which is still important, and we
Mm,
get to that. But I think the most important question now is, why are you calling? Like, why are we doing this now? And what's at the end of the day, what is most important to you?
yeah.
Because that's where they're going to say, oh, I really just want a really beautiful piece of artwork to memorialize this with this. Or maybe it's, hey, we're moving into a new house and I have a lot of empty walls and I would love to do something that's more custom versus some generic artwork from the furniture store. Or maybe it's somebody that says, what's most important to you? Oh, it's most important to me to have all my digital files. Like, I'm going to speak through my inquiry process to the person that says it's most important to me to have all my digital files versus the person that's most important to get a beautiful art piece. That beautiful art piece person might not care that they have any digital files. Where my person that says most important digital files, which by the way, does not automatically exclude them from being a potential client. It
Mm,
just means, okay, I need to tell them about my process and they get to decide if that's worth it for them or if they want to go to someone and just buy digital files. So for that digital file person, I could say, great, awesome. Any of my wall piece includes it. We can add on digital files. Most of my clients tend to create something beautiful for the wall and then sometimes add on an album and will often add on digital files. So here you get the best of both worlds, blah, 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 blah. Um, and another important verbiage that you can use during your inquiry process is when you're asking people these questions or you're telling them, like that digital file person, and you're
mhm.
letting them know this is how I work and most clients can do this and this. How does that sound to you? Or does something like that. That's usually how I say it. It's like, how does that sound to you? And then they'll tell you, oh, I was really looking for just the digitals. Or, oh, no, that sounds great. That's exactly what I would need. And then you can just continue the conversation from there.
Yeah. I I think that's really important. Something that I have learned is that there are right and wrong ways to ask questions on the inquiry call.
Mm-hmm.
You can be asking all the right questions in the wrong way.
Yes.
You don't want to give people too much of an open end
Mhm.
in some questions. Sometimes you want to ask a question with a recommendation within the question. So I find like if I just say to somebody, what do you want to do with your photos? A lot of times they're like, I don't know. If I say, what do you want to do with your photos? Where do you want to display them in your home? They're like, I haven't thought about that. If instead I say, what do you want to do with your photos? Do you have a place in mind where you might want to display them? And then I give them some examples of what they might
Mhm.
do with them. Then they're like, oh, yeah, I want this and this and this and this. And that's how I avoid the digital question is that
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
find that if I ask the question in the right way, sometimes they just are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Yes, I want that. And then all of a sudden they like don't even care about anything else. They just get so
Mhm.
excited. So I think being super cognizant of when you're asking questions in that process too is like asking a question, but in a way that elicits the response you want. It guides them because it's like asking a kindergartner, how do you spell this word?
Mhm.
But they have no idea how it even begins. But if we say it starts, how do you spell Mississippi? It starts the M or meh, and you help them a little bit, they're going to get the point. They're going to be able to do it. But sometimes you have to feed them that little bit of like taste of it so they get the
Yeah.
point of what you're really asking. Because most of the time, this is people's first time having an experience quite like this. So they might not come into it realizing or recognizing all the time,
Mhm.
that the end goal is art until you make that recommendation that the end goal is art. So don't feel discouraged if your clients are like, always just, I don't know what I want to do. I just want
Yeah,
something
I'd
nice.
say most of mine don't really know. Very rarely. Actually, more so now because it's so prominent on my website for
For
artwork.
sure.
So I get a lot more inquiries now. They're like, "Oh, I want a big piece for my house."
Yeah.
Great. Let's can do that. But yeah, years ago, I would always ask, how would you like to have you given any thought to how you'd like to display your images? And oftentimes it was, oh man, I'm not sure, which was an easy opening for me to like most of my clients, which is like my favorite term is just
Yeah.
saying most of my clients XYZ. And then I could go into the signature artwork and what makes it different, how high the quality was and all those things. But just jumping in, if you're starting your inquiry process and you're immediately going to, hey, this is how we create the wall art, this is the quality of the artwork, it's handmade in Italy, XYZ. If you haven't made that emotional connection that we talked about at the beginning, it's all
Mhm.
in deaf ears.
Yeah.
People are looking at that software checklist of, okay, this has this and this is the price. Let me see what that car dealership down the street has before they make that final decision.
100%. Yes, I think that's so important. So, do you ever experience when you get on an info call, people that are just like stone cold? They don't really want to share. Like sometimes I have those info calls that are like an hour long, and I say, "Tell me about your horse," and the lady on the other line is, "My horse, blah 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 blah." For 30 minutes, she will not stop talking about her horse, and she's like crying on the phone. I'm like, "Oh, your baby." Sometimes you get people though that are like just stone cold. They just are there. They want the info. They're not going to tell
Uh-huh.
you. They're not ooey gooey people, maybe
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
anyway.
Yep.
What would you say when you find yourself in those situations where you're like, so tell me about your dog? And they're like, I have an Australian Shepherd. His name is Kodak, and he barks a lot, and he's really annoying, but I love him. You're like, oh, great. So what do you love the most about him? I don't know. So what do you do with your dog? I put him outside, and then he sleeps in our bed at night. You're just like, "Okay." What are you
So,
doing in the situations that
yeah,
would be my info call about my dog personally, so I
I
just
was gonna say, I can speak to this because that's me, and it's not because I don't love my dog, but, like, sometimes words are hard for me, and especially words around emotions.
Yeah.
And, like, painting pictures, like, I know what I'm experiencing, and I know how I see this dog, but for me to explain it to somebody else is challenging. I find that even when people ask me what I do, I'm like, "I'm a pet photographer, and I also teach other pet photographers how to master the craft and grow their business," and, "Oh, what's that look like?" I'm like, "We have a membership." Like, I don't know, it's just I don't know, I'm not one to go into these big, long, in-depth of words, which might seem weird because I've been going into big, in-depth words through this whole entire conversation. However, when people are like that on the phone and it's just like very matter of fact answers, then I find that one question of awesome. You're talking about, okay, what is it? What caused you to call me today to talk about this?
Yeah.
Because that again is going to unlock the answer could be something that came up that time is of the essence, or whatever it is. Maybe it's just, oh, it's just been on my to do list forever. Okay. And I finally just got around to doing it. All right. Awesome. I'm so glad that you did. And then I kind of future pace them. So I talk about, let's look ahead to after we do this. If I didn't get the feeling that they know that I specialize in artwork, I will tell them I specialize in creating beautiful artwork for your home, this or that. So I want to take you to 20 years down the line and you're looking back at what we created today. What's most important to you as we go forward in this progress in this process? Or what's the most important thing in this process? Or if they're still not getting answers, like I might just flat out ask them, like, what's most important to you when you're selecting a pet photographer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. So it's we just recorded an episode for my podcast, for the Hair of the Dog podcast, about going through our sales session. So, all of you guys out here, come listen to Karinda over there because it was a really good
Mhm.
conversation. And you were talking about there how you have to gauge these different personality types and go through the sales session a little bit differently. I think you have to do that for the inquiry session too, where you have those people that are like matter of fact, quick answers. This is just the facts, ma'am. Then you approach that a little bit more differently than the person that's gonna be like, oh, all like flowers and sunshine and butterflies and wants to talk about the emotions. It's just you have to not chameleon yourself because you're not changing who you are. You're just interacting with them a little bit differently.
I think this goes back to the whole idea you have to be a people person first.
Mhm.
And a lot of artists struggle with being people
Yep.
because we're artists, we're creatives, we're to do our own thing. We like to be in our own bubble. And number one, if you picked up the phone and got on the phone, that was uncomfortable enough.
Yeah.
Listening to this and you're not picking up the phone, then start picking up the dang phone, or else I'm going to fly to wherever you live and glue your phone to your ear because it's important. But also, too, like, people don't have phone conversations anymore. I almost feel like sometimes for people, like, a phone call is like, oh, kind of a breath of fresh air. I don't have to open up my email and I don't have to keep an eye out. Like, it's just different these days. So definitely, if you're not picking up the phone because you're scared, just do it. You're going to be surprised the reaction you get, because I do think people appreciate this whole talking to you and getting to know you thing. Um,
Yeah. And I also want to mention real quick what you said that we have to be people. I don't know, people that can interact with people to be in this business because it is such an important piece of this business. And I want to caution anyone out there that was like, great, I'm not a people person. So yeah, this is why I haven't been successful. And BS, it's a skill that can be learned.
yeah,
Believe it or not, I was painfully shy for most of my life, like, painfully shy. Like, calling to order pizza even into, like, my 20s, I was like, I don't wanna pick up the phone. I don't wanna talk to people." And you know how it gets better and easier? Is repetition.
yeah,
So you just freaking do it. And yeah, maybe the first couple times that you're doing your inquiry call, you feel like it's a hot mess. It's going to get better. It's going to get easier. Make notes of the order you want to talk about, but be careful not to have a whole list of questions that you're just like a drill sergeant. Like, all right, tell me about your dog. Okay, does your dog bark? Okay, can your dog be off leash? Okay, where do you want to have the session? Okay, don't do that. But if you need to have some notes of a general flow of an outline, I still like to have my little flow outline, so I just know where I'm going. But it's really just about practice, guys. And
yeah,
also about switching that mindset of, hey, I'm here to help this person. And this is just another human that loves their dog. You're not talking to some sociopath that hates animals.
right.
You're talking to another person that loves their dog or loves their horse. So, like, you can connect over those animals.
Yeah. And I would say, if you're an introvert, which I don't know if you experience this, I find that a lot of photographers are introverts. Uh, and what I'll say is that even introverts are typically like, you might have been telling yourself for years, I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people. But in all reality, most introverts are actually really good one on one.
Mhm.
And most introverts are also really good if they have prepared and they know what they're going to say and they know how they're going to say it. So this is why repetition is good, but also like rehearsing this in your head, play like before you pick up the phone to call a client. Something that my mindset coach that I had years ago, Christina Bold, taught me was to close my eyes and to play out what was going to happen. Like I was sitting there watching a movie play out on a
Ooh,
screen.
like a visualization of your yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's like a visualization. I'm sitting there in the movie theater and I'm watching this interaction of this phone call. I'm on one side, my client's on the other. I'm going to ask my client the question. Here's how they're going to respond. They're going to be so excited. Like their face is just going to be gleaming because I took the time to care about them. And when I tell them the price, they're going to be like, okay, cool. Sounds good. Like literally walking yourself through that a lot and visualizing it. So that way, when you do get on that call, you're not just, hey, this is going to be terrible. They're going to tell me no, and they're going to say this is too
Mhm.
expensive. And they're going to be like, who is this girl to ask for this much money? And she's not any good and her pictures suck anyways. That can be incredibly helpful just to visualize and take yourself through that for the introverts out there that are listening to this. But the other side of this is
Yeah.
to be a business owner, you're going to have to grow. And it's going to be
Mhm.
uncomfortable as all get out. And if you're doing things that are not uncomfortable in your business, probably not doing the right thing because you're making the easy choice. You're taking the easy route in life, in your business. And you might have to put on your big girl panties and say, I'm going to grow up today and I'm going to get over this because if I want to make money as the photographer, I'm going to have to get over this. And it's going to hurt and it's going to be painful. But that is what makes us grow. And I actually listened to have you read The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F book?
I have not read that one, but it's
So
yeah,
I
common.
listened to the audiobook years ago and I was on the airplane this past week flying back from California and there's actually a movie and he like shares his story and it
Oh,
was
really?
huge. Yeah, it was really interesting. He shares this whole idea that like in America, psychology and researchers have spent a lot of time focusing on like how do we make people happy? How do we make
Right.
people fulfilled? Whereas in Europe, they spend a lot of time and money and resources researching how people go through terrible things like the Holocaust or
Uh-huh.
these huge events that have been traumatic and how people come out of those things and made themselves better. And I thought it was really interesting that he said those people that have been through things and they've struggled have been wildly successful. And it's almost like a different mentality in Europe that people know and have accepted that fact that struggle is okay. And in America, we spend a lot of time focusing on let's be happy, let's be fulfilled, which is
Avoid the
great.
struggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here it's you wanna avoid the struggle, where the struggle is what makes you grow.
And not to,
Yeah.
this is me being very cynical right now, but grow up, put your big girl panties on, do what you need to do, even when it's hard,
Mhm.
and know that in order for your business to grow, you're going to have to grow as a person because you right now, like me, Karinda business year one, is not the person I am today. I've had to change, I've had to grow, but not in a bad way. I've had to become a better version of myself. And I think that's incredibly important to point out when we talk about info calls and scary
Yep.
conversations.
And I think one question that you could ask yourself that really could change everything and take your ego, like, conscious mind wanting to stay safe and not do the scary thing, because our brain will start to talk that fear into us of, "Oh, see, yeah, it's not safe for me to do it. Yeah, I don't have to do it. This is fine." But to ask yourself, like, "All right, here's my business goal. My business goal is XYZ, so many clients, whatever sales. What does my business need for me to reach that goal?"
Mm,
Huh. Spoiler alert, your business probably needs you to show up on an inquiry call and ask questions like we've just talked about. So if you ask yourself the question though, what does the version of the business I want to build, what does that need from me?
mhm.
Then it's not about you. It's not about your comfort zone. It's about, oh, my business needs this. And then you can make the decision, is your business goal worth it or not? No
Yeah.
right or wrong. You have the power to decide whatever you want. But I think it becomes easier to short circuit that fear that immobilizes us with, no, this is what my business needs. Let me just do it.
Yeah. Something I've been saying a lot to my coaching clients this year is, are you acting like a CEO? Would a
Yeah.
CEO do that? If you were a CEO at a multi-billion-dollar company, how would you act? And it's, ooh, if this was your job and your boss came in and said to you, Nicole, you need to have 6 clients a month or else you don't have a job, what would you say?
Yep.
And it's start to look at your business like a real business, start to make those shifts, start to treat it like it should be treated. And I feel every time I say this, I feel like I'm being cynical right now, but it's the truth. We have to just put our big girl panties on, do what we need to do, get out of our way, and start treating this like a real business. And then that's when you're going to be like, heck yeah, I'm a photographer. I'm running my business. I make a great living for myself. My husband used to pay the bills, but now I'm the sugar mama because guess what? Right? That's a cool feeling to have, or to be like, I bought this house or I bought that car for myself and I didn't have to depend on anybody. And I think it really starts with just putting yourself out there, doing the scary thing, being different, connecting with your client, building real, genuine relationships, and going above and beyond. And once you start to put all these pieces together, like it falls into place in such a nice, like beautiful manner that you're just like, wow, this is everything I dreamt of. And it gets easier.
It does. Yeah, for sure.
I have loved this conversation. I know we went around the world a bit with everything. We talked about a lot of different things, but hopefully, after listening to this, people start to get an idea of how to put themselves out there, connect with their clients from their marketing to their website, the dreaded info call. Hopefully, you'll start to not be so afraid of the info call and know that it is literally I would say the info call and the image reveal are my two favorite parts of the process. Everything else in between just happens because it has to happen, but those are my favorite pieces in all reality. So hopefully it'll become the same for y'all too. And Nicole, if anyone wants to find you or find the podcast or any of that good stuff that you mentioned, do you want to share where you can find them or where they
Yeah,
can? Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, just come join us over at hairofthedogacademy.com and you'll see links to our podcast there. We also have a big free community. You can come join us to talk about pet photography at hairofthedogacademy.com/community. And I would love to connect with you on Instagram. And I am at Nicole Begley Official. Begley. No H in Nicole.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, it was great chatting with you. I know we've done 2 episodes around your podcast together. The summit was so fun last year. And if those of you who are listening to this have not heard of the Hair of the Dog Summit, check it out. It is so good. What time of year does that normally happen? Or do you have a time frame for that for this year?
Probably in the fall. We'll do another one in the fall.
Awesome. It's really good. And it's so cool to get on a group of, especially if you're a pet or person photographer, and see that you're not the only one doing this. There's a ton of people doing this and they're all super friendly and helpful. So definitely check that out if you're around this fall and you want to listen to that. And I'll share about it too whenever it's released, I'm sure. So keep an eye out there. And let us know like what your takeaway was from this episode. Post in my group or send us a message on Instagram and tell us what your biggest takeaway was. And tell us like your next info call you get on. Well, how has this helped? Like, how has this helped you pick up the phone, ask the questions, and what your experience has been after you start to implement these things? Thanks for joining in today. Bye, guys.